And the other side of our business are the 14 million people across America that cannot afford a studio apartment in the market they live in. The first step is always, the hardest or the scariest. We have around 6,600 rooms in Atlanta, which is by far our biggest market. I think the next biggest market has maybe.
So you do provide cameras in common areas?
So there are pros and cons to every market. PadSplit is very thoughtful about any market.
Welcome everyone. I'm your host Mando with another episode of Real Estate Deli, where we cut through all the noise and deliver actionable insight to you and make the information the star. And today we have Blake Lewis. Blake Lewis is a rep from PadSplit, and we've connected somewhat through back channels, and we decided that we needed to speak to her because this is kind of the lane we're taking as investors, and no better than to have Blake Lewis, as she's out of Atlanta. Thank you, Blake, for coming. And I also have my partner, my buddy, Lance Williard. That's my sidekick, and I'm his sidekick, and we're here just to, again, build a relationship, seek new information, caveats that Blake might bring to the table that we don't know of. So I hope you guys enjoy it. So Blake, thanks you for coming, and I appreciate you. And what drove you to PadSplit? How did you get involved with this rent by room model? And then we could delve into some of the intricacies what you do.
Sure. So my family's been in real estate for many generations. My dad is an apartment developer. My grandfather was in commercial real estate, a little bit of multifamily. And my mom is a retired kindergarten teacher. So I had a few different jobs, like they weren't really aligning with my purpose. And I just was looking for something. And when I heard about PadSplit and realized I can work in this real estate space that I have like a curiosity and passion for and have a positive impact on the community, like my mom, that was it for me. And the first conversation I had with Frank, one of the founders, he said, the motto at PadSplit is do good and do well. And it's exactly what I wanted to do without knowing how to verbalize it. And then I am probably the luckiest person you'll ever meet. Fun fact, I won 2 raffles in 3 days one time. So I just consider this like another notch on the belt of being super fortunate to join a company that is really having a positive impact and like it's interesting to me.
Sweet. I love that. I love that you're a winner. Yeah. Again, kind of introduce to us what is PadSplit and what's their function in the real estate space.
Sure. So PadSplit is the country's largest co-living platform. We essentially are the connection between real estate investors who want to earn more income and have a positive impact on the community. And the other side of our business are the 14 million people across America that cannot afford a studio apartment in the market they live in. So if you think about Uber connecting drivers and riders, we are connecting real estate investors with essentially renters, people that need a place to stay. So at our core, we're a technology company, but at the same time, we understand what we're doing is different and a lot of people don't have experience. So I'm here to kind of consult with you. It's not like, Airbnb where you're never going to be able to talk to someone. You just have support all the way through so that you can educate yourself, get up and running, and reach that financial freedom that you're looking for and feel good about what you're doing in the community.
I love that. And unlike Airbnb, which could be trendy, right? Could have its highs and lows. And you just mentioned the 14 million people are not in a position to have a home of their own, an apartment of their own. This is not a trend. This is a way of life. And there's so many metrics that you could tie up to this. People not getting married as much, people more transient, salaries don't match the cost of living, inflation, and so on. So this is why this model interests us so much in the single family space. And to be honest, nothing pencils in as a long-term rental in this market, right? So Lance, what do you think about that?
Hey, that's exactly why we're here is nothing pencils in. And I'm a numbers guy, so I've got some questions for you here when we get later deep on some metrics.
We like to say it's just math.
I understand.
And the people that started Chick-fil-A, I guess they have a quote that without margin, there is no mission. So I think that also applies to PadSplit too.
Okay.
I love that. So how does, let's say, a newbie get in and they're going to have to source a property and they have to connect the dots. And obviously they have to make sense and there has to be room additions. And how does those rooms look like? Do every room need egresses? Can you get into some of those details?
So essentially there's 5 steps: education, acquisition, renovation, getting the home staged and photographed, and then creating the listing and going live on our site. So I'm here to guide you through that. We have vendor networks to help you. You don't have to reinvent the wheel. We have people that have been doing this for years. You can learn from their experiences. And then I would say you just got to kind of start. You got to just dig in and learn as much as you can. It's always, the first step is always, the hardest or the scariest, but the data's there. Like what we're doing works. It works better than everything else we're seeing. So if you're, serious about reaching passive income, PadSplit's the way.
I love it. And I love it that it kind of started in Atlanta.
Mhm.
And that's kind of one of the reasons that we were very interested there, because it took ground there. So there's some leverage there that was already created. County, city, state, they know about it. So it's something that's kind of prevalent in the area now. You guys been around for a couple years, so there's some normality to it as well, instead of saying like a new market. So that's why it interests me as well, that we can leverage that this product was kind of created here, and it kind of worked out all the kinks here, let's say, before it
Yeah.
kind of spread out. So for those reasons, that's why we were so interested. And just tell us why Atlanta is so dope to invest.
Yeah. So, I mean, in Atlanta, our audience, our customer base is about 160 to 170,000 people. We have around 6,600 rooms in Atlanta, which is by far our biggest market. I think the next biggest market has maybe 1,400 or so. But I'm really proud of the 6,600 rooms, but that's a drop in the bucket compared to the 170,000 people that need us, which is why you're still seeing homes in Atlanta get their first booking in line with our national averages, reach 80% occupancy in line with the national averages, because it's actually easier the more rooms you have in a market, because people know about it. They can tell their friends. If all of us are working at the Applebee's and, Lance is complaining about his deadbeat girlfriend he lives with and he just wants to leave her when he doesn't have the money for an apartment and doesn't want to go to an extended stay motel. Well, maybe you've stayed in a PadSplit, or your brother did, or your ex-girlfriend did. And so, and you can kind of spread the word. And also, I mean, like, there's a contractor in Atlanta that's renovated over 400 houses for PadSplit. So it's like he can do it in his sleep. So there are pros and cons to every market. PadSplit is very thoughtful about any market we go into. So even if something is a new market, it doesn't mean it's like you're not going to be successful. It just, we've had more time to build the brand, train vendors, like get data, all that type of stuff. But everywhere needs PadSplit. I mean, like even like resort towns, Panama City Beach, Jackson Hole, Wyoming, like there are people there that are desperate for housing. So Atlanta is where we started, which is why I work at PadSplit. There's no way, like, I don't know if I would be at the caliber of people that we have being added to the team today. But yeah, I mean, Atlanta's great.
That's super dope. So delving into this space and underwriting and looking at deals and then matching it with your page, just to have a cross reference where the places that you want to be at. We've kind of looked at some metrics, and Lance was always thinking, what are these metrics and what is more important? Which one would you say? Is there a rule of thumb? What's more important, occupancy over how many rooms, how long it takes to book a room? So I'll let Lance dive into that so you can get into some of that stuff.
Yep. I know that whenever you put in a zip code, it brings up the little thing on the side, and it's got the 3 sections, the how many units are in the zip code, and the 80% occupancy, and obviously the shared and private bathroom. Out of those metrics right there, what's your number one go-to?
That's a really interesting question. I think to some extent, is the investor's number one goal cash flow? Is it appreciation? How many rooms, like, do you have to have occupied to cover your costs? Because that is different in a lot of markets, like in other markets where it's like more expensive to purchase, you gotta maybe need to have 5 of your 7 rooms to cover your costs versus 4 out of your 7. So there's a lot that goes into it. That said, I put more stock in the occupancy because the pricing can be impacted by a few things. First of all, and I guess this impacts occupancy too, but investors can price the rooms however they want. The quality of photos is up to the investor. So sometimes the pricing, like in my personal, where I have a zip, or my PadSplit is, the average room price for a shared bathroom, only one of my rooms is below that, and the other 4 or the other 3 are above that, because I know I'm offering a better than average product. So I think you almost have more control over the cost because you're making the decision, and then like I can coach you on how to maximize the occupancy.
Got you.
And I can also give you data on, like, if you see, okay, the average room price is 175, I really need to get to 191 to underwrite the deal. Is that possible? Where I can come in is like, here are 5 properties with an average above 191. This is what they look like. By the way, they're 5 out of 5 filled, or by the way, they're 1 out of 5 filled, or whatever the case may be, so that you can feel empowered as you're underwriting.
Got you. While we're talking metrics and numbers, and Mando may get to this in a minute, but how do you get paid?
PadSplit has 2 fees. The first thing to say is the better experience you create and maintain, the more money you will make. So essentially, and I can coach you through the tips, but the first fee is what's called the booking fee. It costs PadSplit around $700 to acquire every new member. So the first 10 days of a member's stay goes to PadSplit at 100% to recoup some of that. Even a $210 room, that 10-day booking fee is $300. So it doesn't recoup the whole $700, but that 10-day booking fee is to recoup some of the marketing expense. After the 10 days, each PadSplit will then only take 8% moving forward. So the longer people stay, the less often you have to forfeit 10 days dues to PadSplit, so you make more money. I should also mention the minimum stay is 30 days. The average stay is around 9 months. Although members do get one free transfer. So if they show up and the door code doesn't work or the kitchen's disgusting or something, they probably are going to transfer. And then the third thing I'll mention is that hosts set a non-refundable move-in fee. This is in lieu of a security deposit. So even though the first 10 days are going to PadSplit, you're still getting the bulk of that move-in fee on the front end. And then the last thing I'll say before taking a breath is that if you find your own member, we don't charge the 10-day booking fee because we're just trying to recoup our marketing expense. So if we don't have to incur that, then we're not going to make you pay for it. So there's like a promo code, there's a process, but yeah.
That was my follow-up question. If you onboard your own member, I guess now they're onboarded, they still have to they have to sign any forms or any docs, right? So nothing changes in that aspect. It's just someone else brought in the member, let's say.
Yeah, we still need them to like pass our background check and like pay through our platform and agree to the house rules. Because if all three of us were members, as we call them, residents in the home, I can see your faces. I know that, Mando's in room 1 and this is what his face looks like, and Lance is in room 4. And by the way, the Civic, the Honda Civic belongs to Lance. So if it's blocking in my Toyota, I know exactly who to ask to move their Civic out of my way.
Sweet. Go ahead, Lance. You have anything?
That's all I got number related.
Cool. I do. Let me what I want to know, what makes a great operator? Do you have a system that you provide, to be a great operator, be a quality operator? Because me and Lance are coming this, we want to separate ourselves from the pack. We are going to be great operators, quality operators, right? So we want to be able to stand out. And what are some things that make you stand out? And what are features in the property to sustain that?
So one of our little taglines around here is care, show it, prove it. And I think that is really important. So set up the property nicely to begin with. So for example, PadSplit allows rooms as small as 80 square feet. I would recommend no smaller than 100 square feet. PadSplit allows a twin size bed, but as the person that always gets sent to the bunk beds on a girls trip, it's not really that comfortable for, even someone that's 5'2" to sleep on a twin size bed. So I'm team full size bed. Some hosts will even do a queen or king. I'm team full size bed because I'm trying to discourage guests at all times. And then another big thing, PadSplit requires a supply or return vent. But if you think about it, their doors are closed 24 hours a day because of course they're closed when they go to work. They're going to come home, make their dinner, eat it in the dining room, go back to their room to rest, watch Netflix, whatever. So if you only have a return vent, that room is not going to be comfortable. Another little thing, I put full length mirrors in my PadSplit because one, it's one more thing to have on the wall. And also it cuts down on the shared bathroom time if someone just like wants to blow dry their hair. So setting it up nicely is really important. The next thing to do is to make sure that maintenance issues are being responded to in a very timely manner. Like if the dryer's not working, you don't want someone to have to pay to take a bus, to pay to wash their clothes at a laundromat. And then, it's just like not a good experience. I put desks and chairs in all of my rooms. If there's space, one of my rooms doesn't have them. Some hosts will do mini fridges. Some hosts will do TVs. I haven't done that. I might in the future. But I think, yeah. And then so maintenance issues. And then the third thing is cleanliness. A lot of that's one of the biggest complaints. So you are required to provide initial cleaning supplies. A lot of our operators will send in a cleaning service for common areas once or twice a month. A lot of operators will replenish cleaning supplies. That's pretty much what I do. If you have the cleaner come the first week of the month and you have a move in on the 21st, you might want to go by and clean it again. Or I always check my cameras like in my kitchen to see if the kitchen's clean if I have a new member moving in. And then you can also just do little things like the last Friday of the month, I do a pizza party. I mean, it's like 3 pizzas from Papa John's or Domino's or whatever. It's like $60. And, they seem to appreciate it.
You hit my follow-up question with cameras. So you do provide cameras in common areas?
Yeah,
right?
Obviously not the bathroom, but yeah, the front door, kitchen. If you have a living room, I would have one in there. And then I would have had one in the back of my house, but there was no power outlet. I make it explicitly clear in my listing details that there are cameras for their protection. I also, during that 24-hour time when I can review applicants, I also reiterate at that time that there are cameras there.
I love that. And is there a metric or something that you identify, since you are an operator as well, that creates people to stay?
I mean, honestly, I had someone leave on November 3rd, so I'm convinced she stayed for the October pizza party. But I mean, I don't know that, but yeah, I think just
It did.
like just showing that you're a person, that you're not some like black box corporation that has like millions of homes. And like, I only have one, so it's easy. And I hope that I can still bring that level of service when I have 3 or 5 or my goal of 10 for now, but we'll see.
And
Got a follow-up question on your setup of the home. All right, let's say you have a 7 or 8 room house. All right, so you got 7 or 8 different people. What about the kitchen? Are you and what you're seeing? Are there 8 different cabinets that people can store their own food? How does the kitchen work as far as the co-living model?
So if you have 7 rooms, you're required to have a second refrigerator, or I suppose you could have one and like mini fridges in several of the rooms or something. And if you have 10 rooms, you're required to have not necessarily a full second kitchen, but like a kitchenette in the basement where there's a second microwave, a second refrigerator, and a second sink. I actually do number the cabinets. And the reason why I do that is so that when I have a room turn, I know what I can throw away versus 4 years from now, there's like some super expired can of tuna that I didn't know who it belonged to. So I like assigning the cabinets. I thought it was like a little micromanaging when hosts started doing that with the cabinets, but then even also in the refrigerator, but I like it. And I did the same. In my personal PadSplit, because I only have 5 rooms, I had 1 refrigerator with 1 freezer. The freezer stopped working. I ordered a new fridge. I guess I just mistakenly assumed they were going to take the old refrigerator. They didn't. So now I have 2 refrigerators with 1 working freezer. So I just have like a big sign on the one that's like, don't use it. And then as people move in, I'm like, by the way, there are 2 refrigerators, but one of the freezers doesn't work. So
now is all of that, I've seen where some people take like a dining room and build it, instead of making it another room, they'll put a pantry per se for each one. That way you've got the cabinets for, your pots, pans, and all that. Is that something you recommend, or is that just based on personal preference?
I think personal preference, like some people convert the dining rooms into bedrooms and the only space is like a little tiny table in the kitchen. I don't love that. I think it's nice to have a dining room, though I'm fully in favor of converting the living room so long as it meets egress and all the, requirements. But I mean, I think it just comes down to the number of cabinets. Like given the size of my kitchen, if it was 8 rooms, I would probably need to do that. But like I think it just depends on the layout.
Okay.
How important is the initial interview process? Because, right, I'm assuming for yours, you interview the person and you're obviously going to set the tone to create good habits from the beginning, right? And let's say a member comes in and it starts kind of breaking the rules. Do you have a policy like a 3 strikes and you're out? How do you deal with members like that? Because you don't want to disrupt the rest of the members, right?
That's right. So it depends. So I've had 2 situations. So the first, a young woman came in, she was vaping and she had a guest. The other members, because I had set the tone with them, I care about you, I care about the property. 3 of the other 4 people within a day, she's vaping, she had a guest. So they all told on her. I caught her on my kitchen camera. So I emailed support and showed showed her vaping. So they issued her a fine. Support did that. And then I called her and I was like, Corianne, your behavior is unacceptable. She's like, they're ganging up on me because the 4 of them were here from the beginning. I'm like, that's not true. Like you are violating the rules. So then she started crying and like, she's 19 and like, I did lots of dumb stuff when I was 19 too. So I was like, here's my recommendation. You've messed up. I get it. I do have empathy. I need you to transfer to another PadSplit so that you can have a fresh start. And then I need you to respect that host rule. She's crying. Can I have a few more days? So I gave her a couple more days and then that's what she did. That's unacceptable. The other situation I had, a woman was noisy essentially in the middle and she called. I woke up the next morning and 2 of the 4 members had said, can you call me? I don't want to be a snitch. And then she was like, I drank too much. I didn't act appropriately. I can assure you this will not happen again. So then I talked to some other hosts to get their advice and I called the other members in the house. I was talking to one of them. She's like, I'm literally making her breakfast right now. I'm like, that's really nice of you. So they all said, like, she said she's not going to do it again. So we all want to give her another try. And like, I talked to 2 of the other 4 members. And I said, okay. So I put it in writing. That behavior is not going to be tolerated. If it happens again, I'm going to give you a notice to vacate. And then it hasn't happened again.
That's sweet.
Yeah.
So me and Lance are long distance investors. Obviously, like we spoke about, we love Atlanta. In hiring up a property manager, what is this, some criteria, or what is it you look for a property manager's duties to do, let's say for long distance investors,
Yep.
Follow-ups or checks, that process and procedures, how to make sure that everything's being handled?
So from the jump, I would want you to know who you're using before the contractor's finished, because then that way, if you've not given the contractor their final payment, you can have the property manager, if the contractor says I'm done or I'm going to be done later this week, the property manager should on your behalf go walk the home, flush every toilet, like test every electrical outlet, whatever, because they're going to be taking it over. So they want everything to be perfect. And they might even have like a small punch list for you that you can give back to the contractor. Like the electrical outlet in room 2 doesn't work. There's no thing to pull down the light on the fan in room 1, whatever's missing. And then the property manager can kind of help you with that. And then many property managers are also going to handle getting the home staged and photographed and creating the listing for you. Now, it should be a conversation. Like you might think, hey, I'm planning on, having room 1 be $200, room 2 be $250. And maybe they'll say great, or maybe they'll say based on our data, we think this or that. And I'm happy to chime in with my insights. They should help you from the jump. Some questions I would be asking are, can I speak to some references, explain your fee, explain your fee model? Can I see some examples of reports you've provided to other hosts? Like obviously you can hide the address. You don't need to share that with me, but I want to see how your reports look, what you're charging for stuff. Like I want to see that, you're telling me you charge $70 for a room turn, but can I see that on someone's report that you're truly charging $70? And then, what happens, you're telling me your SLA to flip a room is 3 days. What happens if I look and it's been 5, just like those kinds of questions.
What's an SLA?
Thank you. Service level agreement, and just like standard operating. And then also, how often, what are you doing proactively to maximize the revenue on my portfolio? And what I mean by that is like literally in the dashboard, you can see all of your rooms, what our system thinks, if they're priced appropriately, how long the person's been in the room, when the last time they had an increase was. And I know that like of the 2 operators, the 2 largest ones in Atlanta, one of them has a weekly task where they go through every room, and any room that's been more than, I think, 4 months without an increase, they're reviewing. So I feel like in that regard, they're maybe going to help the host make a little bit more money versus the other one who maybe isn't doing proactive stuff like that. So like, yeah. And I would ask, when someone's terminated for non-payment, what is your process? Do you immediately go to this or that? And just,
I love that. I want to go back to the vape thing, the house rules. Do you allow a person to smoke even on the premises, like outside, like someone who smokes cigarettes? Are they like banned from smoking totally on the premises?
Not for me. I just have a very specific rule of where it is acceptable. So like in one corner, I have one of those giant ashtrays that's like, can hold like hundreds of cigarette butts, I guess. And like I made it clear that is the only place, but not on my deck, definitely not inside, over there in that back corner.
Right, all the way over there.
Yeah.
I love that. And prior to we getting on live, I gave a speaker to an operator, and I told kind of Blake what was happening with this operator, and he has some issues like house rules, like how you deal with a person who flushes wipes and stuff like that. Do you have a bulletin on the bathroom? Hey guys, this isn't acceptable. It comes at cost to me, and you guys live here. You guys are the ones that suffer at the end of the day, right?
Yeah. So we have standard house rules that are printed in their dashboard, as well as posters that you can download and like reprint and like put up around the house. There's one on like throwing away food in the fridge, because if you don't, it creates mold, not just on that food, but on other food. So there's all kinds of posters and signage that PadSplit has that you can use. And yeah, I just try to reiterate it. Another thing is like every time I'm going to the house, I just bring more toilet paper because I am a Costco person and I always have it in my basement. And then also when anyone moves in, I give them like a little shower, like a $9 mesh shower caddy that I get on Amazon. It's partially a cue to be like, you don't leave your stuff in the common bathroom. I'm giving you this caddy, but I also put a roll of toilet paper in that. So like, I know from the moment someone moves in, they have toilet paper. And I also know that when I go replenish the toilet paper, I can see that there's like the non-Charmin Ultra Soft from Costco that I'm buying. So like other people are clearly buying it too. So I just think like, they even like wipes that say they're, this is an old house, like flushable wipes are not flushable in these pipes. And you just like definitely do a plumbing inspection on the beginning. It's worth it. Like snake the line, make sure there's no pre-existing issues. It's also important.
Yeah, Lance, chime in.
Yeah, nah, you hitting everything, Blake. You've done this once or twice.
Once or twice.
Well, I don't have everything you're saying. You're answering. So right now, I don't have any follow-up questions.
Yeah, Blake, what are some tips and tricks? Again, just keep on expounding it to us and our audience, the do's and don'ts in PadSplit and what makes a good operator. Going back to like the guy I was telling you, I think, you know, I don't think he was a good operator. I'm not saying that he was a bad, but if I felt that way, I felt like maybe he was trying to also blame PadSplit somewhat. But when you're blaming, that mean for me, you're kind of trying to deflect from what you were doing, right? Taking accountability. And what are some tricks to avoid? What are some pitfalls, really?
So
Like,
yeah, I was gonna say there can be a pitfall at every turn. I mean, if you overpay for a property, that's really hard for PadSplit to fix for you. If you don't properly, get inspections and you find out that you have a major plumbing problem, or if you don't get your work permitted, like we want you to permit your work. If you don't set it up nicely because you put 10 people in 81 square foot rooms with twin size beds, and like your only storage is a clothing rack, like that's not going to be comfortable, for people. So just like, would you stay in this room? Like, would you let your sister or your mom stay in this room? If the answer is no, then like maybe need to tweak something. I think not as much as people want to be hands off. When you hire a local operator, you still kind of have to manage the property manager, because you have to make sure they're doing what they told you they were going to do when you interviewed them. Like if they say they're going to turn rooms in 3 days and it's 2 weeks, that's like not just the 2 weeks of that room not being occupied, it's not being marketed. And in a lot of markets, it's about 10 days to get the room rebooked, and then another 10 days to revenue. So like even from the day someone moves out, you're probably, 2 to 3.5 weeks away from revenue again. So you really want to shorten those times. So like acquisition, renovation, management, like, yeah, those are the pitfalls. And just like be a considerate person, like things happen, like be understanding, like they're not always like members' fault, like crap happens and you just gotta like remember. And the other thing is like a lot of people that stay in PadSplits haven't been fortunate enough to have the same kind of like, for some people, it's the first time living in a single family home in like a neighborhood. So just like reminding them to like park considerately and to roll the trash can back in and to not be noisy in the yard. And just like making sure you're setting the tone is really important. Not having enough parking is a huge problem in the acquisition process. So my specific PadSplit, I looked for a long time to find one on a quiet street off of a busy street. So my house is like 0.3 miles to a bus stop. So even though I have 5 rooms, I really only ever had to have 2 cars and the other 3 people use the bus. Right now I'm at 4 people using the bus and 1 using the car. But sometimes like, and this will come up like in the outskirts of town or like in a place like Texas where everything's bigger in Texas, people are like finding these houses that can have like 10 rooms. Like that's great. I mean, I think that's probably too many. That's okay. But like, if you don't have space for 10 cars, and you're 3 miles from a bus stop, you don't actually have room for 10 rooms either.
Are you sourcing your own tenants, or you just strictly back off and let PadSplit do that? And what are too many tenants for you, let's say in the Atlanta market?
So yeah, I let PadSplit do the marketing because they're better at it than me, and they're spending $600,000 a month on it. And like any efforts I would have would be probably not effective. If you want to do your own marketing to like to not have to pay the 10-day fee, PadSplit actually, when you have a property, there's like a really easy way to generate a flyer that then you can go post in Craigslist or Facebook Marketplace, or you can physically print and like take to the Walmart break room or whatever employer is giving you like validation that this is a good place to do PadSplit. So you can do either. I just feel like even in Atlanta, we're still between 85 and 90% occupied. So like the 6,600 rooms or whatever is just a drop in the bucket. So, I mean, I don't see myself ever having a home with more than 7 or 8. Now we'll see, there are scenarios where it makes sense. Like I have a client who bought a duplex and turned each side into 5 rooms. So there are 2 kitchens and there's literally a bus stop 1 house over. So he allows 4 people to park and 6 people use the bus. Great. So like, does that cash flow? Yes. But like, if you think about the wear and tear and the utilities, there are pros and cons. So I would like for my next PadSplit to ideally be a 7-bedroom, 3-bathroom. And in that one, I would have 1 room with an ensuite. Those get about a 50% premium on the room rate, and then have 6 rooms sharing 2 bathrooms. That's sort of what I'm targeting next.
That's so dope, and it's going to happen for you. Yeah,
it is. Yeah, it is. Back to the car thing, you keep saying, how you got 4 people on the bus, 1 on the car. Is that on the application? Hey, are you bringing a car? If so, okay. If not, we ain't got no room for a car. Yeah. How does that part work?
Good question. So when the operator creates the listing, they're going to say like, it's got 7 rooms and I want 2 on-street parking, 3 off-street park as an example, which means 5. So as people are signing up for rooms, they are supposed to register their cars, and it's going to take away from the car allotment. So if the first 5 people all have cars, when that 6th person goes to book, it's going to be like, you absolutely can book this or, request to book this room, but you cannot bring a car to the property. So it's supposed to stop it. Now, during that 24-hour window, when you have the opportunity to review applicants and interview them, you can see if they have a car registered. So one of the questions I ask is play dumb. Like definitely the people that live in my PadSplit don't know I work at PadSplit. I'd like to, but like
now.
well, we'll see. I'm like, do they know? So
not yet.
they've never
Soon.
told me that they know. I don't know. So
Chop it up.
So we can see if they have a car registered. So every time I say, do you have a car? And if they say yes and it's registered, great. If they say yes and it's not registered, I'll say like, can you please register it with PadSplit? And I make them do it before I say yes. If they say no, I'm like, okay, great. And I should say back up and say members don't know the actual address of the property until their move-in day. They have like a general idea. So what I tell them is I say this house is 0.3 to the bus stop at this intersection. Can you please map that to your commute and like make sure that works for you?
Got you. You just brought up another question. With me and Mando being long distance investors, we kind of got an idea of what to ask for. Hey, you're renting the whole house. Are there any different types of questions you would ask someone that wants to rent by the room and have to live with other people? What kind of questions would you ask?
So I ask where they smoke, not do you smoke? And I ask, tell me about when you've had roommates in the past and how you dealt with conflict. I reiterate my quiet hours policy. I reiterate, that I'm strict, but it's because I care. And I'm compassionate. Like I give people extensions on paying all the time when they ask, if something came up with your kid or whatever. So, I think it's like being compassionate about the right things and being kind of a stickler about the right things. So I like to know about that. I ask how long they want to stay, but I don't really put too much stock in it because PadSplit also asks, and I can tell you like from seeing that data, people are really bad about knowing. Sometimes it could be for a lot of reasons. Like maybe they don't know if they're going to like co-living, or maybe like they think that they're like maybe have a little bit of shame, which they shouldn't, but like, oh, I only need this for 2 months and I'm going to get my own place, so those kinds of things. So I ask, but just get the conversation open. I ask why they chose my PadSplit. Also, when they fill out their member application, they can put some personality attributes, like if they're an introvert or extrovert, if they're like a night owl or a morning person. So like I try to get a little bit of a feel for their personality. I definitely let them know about the cameras. I definitely let them know if they're requesting one of the rooms with the shared bathroom. I'm like, you are sharing this bathroom. It's important to me that you clean up after yourself in the bathroom. Do you agree to do that?
Cool.
And there's another, we have a Facebook group for hosts and also just curious hosts. There's like 9,000 people in it. There's some hosts in there that have like questionnaires that are much more thorough. And they kind of also, they want to know the answers to the questionnaire, but they also see it as like kind of selecting people out if they're not taking the time.
Gotcha.
Blake, you brought all the jewels today. You dropped mad knowledge on us. You made the deli proud. Where can people reach out to if they want to connect with you?
So you can email me, blake@padsplit.com. Please tell me that you came from hearing this podcast so that we know to thank Mando. Also, they can reach out to you and then you can introduce them to me via email. Either works great for me. I would say follow PadSplit on Instagram. It's @PadSplit. I have an account. I think it's like 2x ROI with Blake Lewis. I'm not really like a social media person, so you won't see much, but it does exist.
Awesome. Yeah, hit Blake up or just leave a comment or hit me up and we'll connect the dots for you. Again, Blake, thanks you for showing up. We appreciate you.
Thank you so much for having me.
Bye-bye. Take care.
See ya.